Let's jump right into this explainer by imagining an academic discipline that completely shapeshifts the absolute second you cross a border. We're looking at a single field today, rural economics. But here's the thing. Depending on the country, opening the textbook reveals two totally different universes. It's a field that transforms its entire identity, its core purpose, and its fundamental vocabulary based entirely on the nation that's teaching it. So this isn't just about comparing different farming techniques. It's about looking at the exact same subject and seeing two alternate realities. Be honest, when you hear the words rural economics, your eyes probably glaze over a bit, right? You're probably picturing crop prices, farm subsidies, or, watching corn grow. It sounds traditional, highly specialized, and frankly, a little dusty. You might assume it's just this niche subject reserved for agricultural science majors. But actually, scratch that. We are going to completely shatter that expectation today. We're going to see how this seemingly quiet academic corner actually holds the blueprint for how nations survive massive global shifts. To really understand this shape-shifting field, we're going to pit two distinct paradigms against each other, India and South Korea. By placing these nations side by side, we witness a dramatic transformation. Over in India, rural economics is this massive, gritty poverty reduction mission aimed at pulling millions into the modern economy. But in South Korea, it's a highly theoretical, existential fight for civilizational survival. Same exact name, completely different global stakes. It's basically a perfect microlens for understanding the macroeconomic forces that are reshaping our world today. Let's kick things off with Paradigm A, India, where the rural space is primarily viewed as an urgent space to develop. If you crack open a standard Indian university syllabus, the focus is incredibly pragmatic. They start by acknowledging the harsh reality of heavy agricultural reliance and these complex, historically rooted land systems. But there is absolutely no time to linger on abstract theories or philosophical debates here. The curriculum immediately pivots to urgent problem solving. It's completely designed to identify the immense hurdles holding the population back and systematically tackle them through deeply practical community development frameworks. This pragmatic approach builds what we can call the development arc. The textbooks attack core issues with a really clear logical flow. Step 1 is literal survival, tackling absolute poverty and mass unemployment head on. Step 2 is laying the necessary groundwork by building physical infrastructure. We're talking roads, electrification, and water management. And then Step 3 secures the future through local governance. The overarching goal? Aggressively fix the rural sector, make it highly productive, and force multiply broader national economic growth. And the curriculum totally reflects this massive real-world engineering. Students are studying heavy-hitting tools like the MGNRGA, which is this enormous government employment guarantee program that literally provides a legal right to work. And that sits alongside grassroots financial lifelines like self-help groups and massive national development banks like NABARD. These aren't just dry academic concepts to memorize for a final exam. They are the actual on-the-ground mechanisms designed to pull hundreds of millions of people out of crushing poverty every single day. The academic field here is effectively a high-stakes training manual for national development. Now, let's pivot to a completely different reality and ask a crucial paradigm-shifting question. What happens when your biggest crisis is no longer poverty, but population collapse? What does this exact same academic field look like in a hyper-modern post-industrial nation? We're talking about places where the primary goal isn't just to grow the economy, but to literally keep the society from disappearing off the map entirely. How does the textbook change when the people just vanish? And that brings us right to Paradigm B, South Korea. This is a system not to develop, but to maintain. In recent Korean scholarship, the traditional rules of this discipline are thrown completely out the window. By chapter 3 of a modern textbook, you won't find any mentions of crop yields or basic land reform. No way. Instead, you're hit with complex, multidisciplinary theories, things like spatial economics, the social economy, the tragedy of the commons, and systemic resilience. Suddenly, the rural landscape is treated as this highly intricate, super fragile sociospatial web that requires advanced theoretical modeling just to even comprehend. The mission here is purely systemic survival. The academic focus shifts drastically to Step 1, managing severe, accelerating population decline. Step 2 then becomes a really desperate effort to prevent the total physical and social collapse of rural settlements. And Step 3? It's the logistical nightmare of maintaining basic community services, like keeping health clinics, schools, and transportation running in areas that are rapidly becoming ghost towns. The existential crisis in this paradigm isn't a lack of money. It's a critical lack of people. Putting these two frameworks head-to-head reveals a stark, fascinating contrast. India's textbooks act as highly practical, problem-solving policy manuals, teaching students exactly how to build roads, secure credit, and open bank accounts for marginalized farmers. Korea's curriculum, on the other hand, reads like a highly advanced, integrated theoretical framework. It's teaching students how to diagnose, model, and manage the spatial and social collapse of a hyper-aging, post-industrial society. This stark dichotomy essentially boils down to two clashing questions. India is asking, how do we put rural areas on the rapid growth track? South Korea asks, how do we redefine rural areas as a complex, self-sustaining system? These aren't just subtle nuances in academic literature, They're flashing neon signs pointing to completely different national anxieties, demographic realities, and historical eras. It shows us exactly where each country stands on the global developmental timeline. The mirror effect here is profound when you look at the core metrics. For India, the primary enemy to defeat is poverty. For South Korea, the monster at the gates is depopulation. The ultimate goal completely shifts from maximizing agricultural and economic productivity in a developing nation to ensuring sheer sustainability in a developed one. It's wild. One nation is fighting with all its might to build an economy up from the dirt, while the other is fighting to keep its society from hollowing out entirely. So, in the Korean text, the methodology elevates the field to the level of rigorous hard science by chapter 11. To diagnose this complex social condition, students are armed with advanced digital analysis tools, focusing deeply on spatial heterogeneity and hidden causality. They aren't just memorizing government programs and subsidy rates anymore. They are using high-tech frameworks to scan, map, and try to understand a multi-layered, disappearing society before it's too late. It is literally data science applied to demographic survival. And this evolution reaches an absolute climax in chapters 12 and 13, when the Korean text introduces the concept of civilizational insight. Here, rural areas are no longer viewed as lagging economic sectors that need our charity or state subsidies to catch up. Instead, they are radically redefined as essential public goods. The authors argue that these open spaces are the very bedrock of civilizational maintenance and societal resilience for the entire country. It's a profound, almost philosophical shift in how we value land and community. So, what should you really take away from this explainer? Well, it's that while academic tables of contents usually seem like excellent cures for insomnia, they are actually crystal clear mirrors. When you know how to read them, they perfectly reflect the developmental stage, the historical condition, and the deepest existential goals of a nation at a specific moment in time. The boring textbooks we study tell us exactly what we're terrified of losing and what we're fighting to build. As we watch the diverging paths of India's aggressive push for growth and South Korea's desperate battle for preservation, I want to leave you with this final thought. Based on the massive demographic shifts happening globally right now, what is the ultimate question our own era must ask about the spaces outside our major cities? Are we trying to develop them, or are we running out of time to save them? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll see you in the next one.